I have had many conversations, as you have had, with a lot of young people over the last many months now. And you're right, they don't know very much at all about the history of the Middle East, or frankly about history in many areas of the world, including in our own country. Propaganda is not education. Propaganda, on whether it's TikTok or in the classroom, is actually the opposite of education.
So that is, of course, Hillary Clinton. Remember her and how she was as a politician? She's still that way. And there she's talking with Joe Scarborough about how college students were organizing against the war, against the massive needless loss of civilian life in Gaza, are too stupid to have an opinion about it. They don't know the history of the Middle East. And you know what? They don't know the history of the US either. They're a bunch of dumb donkeys and they should leave politics to their betters. 30% of that was added by me, 70% of it was courtesy of the woman that weirdly lost in 2016. It's weird that she didn't rally more people to support her with that utterly condescending approach to the youngest generation. You notice there at the end that she, of course, labeled information being shared on TikTok as pro-Hamas and anti-Israel. And you may say that that's an inappropriate characterization of the information, but I want you to put yourself in her place. She is opposing a massive anti-war movement. You don't want to cede that ground to them, so you don't say that they're anti-war. You make up something that sounds bad. Yeah, they're pro-terrorist. They love Hamas. That's the ticket. So basically, that's what happened. And there were people on the other side pushing back against this. We're going to give you a little bit of video of progressive filmmaker Michael Moore, who's criticizing people like Clinton who have no interest in what these college students actually believe, what they're actually advocating for. But I want to give you just a little bit more about Hillary Clinton.
With respect to the Middle East, they don't know that under the bringing together of the Israelis and the Palestinians by my husband, the then Israeli Prime Minister Ehud Barak, the then head of the Palestinian Liberation Organization, then the Palestinian Authority, Yasser Arafat. An offer was made to the Palestinians for a state on 96% of the existing territory occupied by the Palestinians, with 4% of Israel to be given to reach 100% of the amount of territory that was hoped for. And this offer was made, and if Yasser Arafat had accepted it, there would have been a Palestinian state now for about 24 years. It's one of the great tragedies of history that he was unable to say yes.
I have to apologize for everything I said earlier. I didn't know that. Like most college students, I'm not an expert in Middle East history. Now that I know that they rejected the possibility of a Palestinian state, I now see that the 14,000 kids who've died in Gaza deserved it. And it's not a tragedy. It used to bother me. It doesn't bother me now. I don't care about the men, women, and children, civilians who were blown apart, many with bombs that we supplied. That used to bother me, but I didn't know the thing about Camp David. And so now I feel better. I hope every college student across America sees that. The protests will probably evaporate. Cenk, what do you think?
Pausing here to deliver some honest truth, as we do in our news coverage as well. TYT is facing challenges, guys, as the entire industry is. You know who could make the difference? You. If you hit the join button below, it's gonna make all the difference and keep us in business. We appreciate you, thank you. Yeah, so we're gonna do a poll in a little bit and ask you guys who you think is right, Michael Moore or Hillary Clinton. So stay around to hear what Michael Moore had to say. He's on your side, okay? Anyways, so part of the reason we're doing that poll is because I want to show you the difference between online media and mainstream media. She mentioned propaganda. She also mentioned, by the way, that the young people she just talked to were idiots. So if I'm the young person that just had a conversation with Hillary Clinton, I'm like, what? Okay, wait, are you referring to me? Okay, so anyways, no, she mentioned propaganda, and that's really relevant because who do you think might be doing propaganda? Let's think about the incentives. Either people who have been historically literally paid by Israeli interests like Hillary Clinton, who's taken tremendous amount of money from AIPAC, and all the politicians who've taken tremendous money from AIPAC, and have an incentive to deliver in return for that money wall-to-wall propaganda on behalf of Israel. Israel is in the name of AIPAC. There's no subtlety about it at all, okay? So now, or mainstream media who serves corporate interests and has a corporate infrastructure and often literally has memos saying what you can and can't say. And if, like with CNN, for example, that has some good pieces from time to time, but must check every story about Israel through their Jerusalem bureau. Is that more likely to produce propaganda or random young people on TikTok? Who are the random young people on TikTok serving? And why are they serving? Is Hamas paying them? Okay, the Palestinians who are starving to death are miraculously have gathered up money and are sending it to teenagers in Cincinnati and Nebraska. Okay, I'm pretty sure one side is doing propaganda, has an enormous incentive to do propaganda, and the other side are actual real human beings who care about what John mentioned. Maybe like when a 2,000-pound bomb is dropped on a building and it crushes the skulls of grandmothers and babies. And speaking of her propaganda, I'm so sick of this propaganda about how, we just gave Arafat the most beautiful deal and he totally rejected it. And so that's why we decided to keep them occupied and our prisoners and hostages for another couple of decades, right? Number one, there's no excuse for the occupation. They should unilaterally end the occupation. You don't get to imprison and take 5.5 million hostages. Can the Chinese government say, hey, well, man, we offered the Uyghurs a deal and the sons of bitches wouldn't take it. That's why we have them in concentration camps. Now, they do say that, by the way, and the world thinks it's an outrageous thing to say, and no one believes them. But when Israel says, well, that's why we had to keep these folks in these camps here in West Bank and Gaza Strip, it's both factually incorrect, and even if it were true, is no justification at all. The reality of the peace deals is super complicated. One of the lead negotiators for the American side said Bill Clinton is not telling the truth. It was the Israelis that were obstinate. I think Yitzhak Rabin, the leader of Israel at the time, was trying to get to a peace deal, but there was a deep problem on the Israeli offer for a peace deal when it was Arafat. Ehud Omer, a later Israeli prime minister, actually made a pretty good offer, in my opinion, that Mahmoud Abbas should have taken. But that doesn't mean, that's why Israel slaughtering 34,000 people is okay, right? And by the way, the Palestinians have made tons of offers to the Israelis that the Israelis didn't take. Does that make Hamas's action on October 7th justifiable? Of course not. So why is that not justifiable but when Israel kills 30 times the number of civilians and Hillary Clinton goes back to decades ago to say, well, they didn't take a peace deal once out of the hundreds of offers back and forth, we'll only say the Palestinians didn't take. Well, the Israelis by definition didn't take hundreds of offers from the Palestinians. So it is pure propaganda. And the fact that she calls the other side propaganda is also propaganda. That's exactly what propagandists do. All right, I got more, and we got Michael Moore, but Sharon, your thoughts?
Listening to Hillary Clinton, I mean, just how condescending, talking down to us, anti-fact narrative. I mean, for some reason, she did it. She made me feel for the basket of deplorables by listening to her. That's how ridiculous she is. This whole thing where young people are too stupid to stand up for humanity. Stop with the false narrative, pro-Palestinian, pro-Hamas. How about, I don't want to see women, children, innocent civilians die or be held hostage. But the other side has to keep it really simple, not just anti-facts, but really simple, in order to keep playing this lie over and over again. And by the way, the president saying, if you go any further, I will hold up weapons. Do we really believe it? It's like this fake narrative to keep us asleep at the wheel. And then, by the way, let's send in the police, round up all the college kids, and have Hillary Clinton. I'm surprised she didn't dumb it down to, remember when my husband made the 2 leaders laugh? Remember that? It was just so clever and so easy and so cute. I can't listen to her. I can't listen to her, and her legacy, I think, is greatly impacted by this, if it can be anymore.
Yeah, and again, as I sort of alluded to in the intro, like you can sort of see why she wasn't able to win over enough people to beat Donald Trump and have us avoid so much trouble. She's just bad as a politician. I'm not even talking about all the issues that we've articulated over the course of like 30 years when it comes to the policy, just as the ability to communicate. Like what she's talking about boneheaded in two different ways. First of all, you do not need to be a subject matter expert to value human life. That's just not how that works. I hate what Russia is doing in Ukraine. I don't need to study in Moscow to say that. That doesn't make any sense. And she would never apply that logic to any other conflict than this. She thinks it's an easy out here, that's why she's doing it. But even if it did make sense to do that, it wouldn't make sense to say it. Do you think that Hillary Clinton is going to win over one single college student with that argument? That they're gonna be like, you know what? I haven't read a lot of books about Middle Eastern history. No, she's only gonna anger them more. A movement that has been needlessly antagonized every step of the way. There are plenty of people that are part of these protests and definitely were early on that just wanted to see a ceasefire. They wanted to see the US stop aiding and abetting mass murder. But there's also a ton of people who've entered the protests because of the crackdowns, because of the suppression, and because of the propaganda. Like you were attacking some of the aspects of propaganda, and there are a lot. But think about being one of these campus protesters and seeing every single person in the news describe you as being pro-Hamas. Or at the very least, if they're not gonna say that, and not all will, anti-Israel. That is just propaganda, that's not journalism. They're against the war. That doesn't mean they're against a country. It certainly doesn't mean they're against a people or a religion. And if you were part of that group and you saw everyone in their fancy studios mocking you and besmirching you in that way, I'd be radicalized too. Now, as we said, thankfully there are some people that are trying to fight back against this. Let's go now to Michael Moore.
I don't understand why fellow boomers are being so snide and snarky about them, or telling them they're a bunch of idiots. They don't know what they're talking about. They don't understand the history. They don't. Jeez, what they understand is right and wrong. And the fact that they are not apathetic and they don't want to be silent. These are all very positive things. And you may not agree with everything they say or do or whatever, but nonetheless, they're not out there to hurt anybody. They've not hurt anybody. And yet they're ridiculed in the media, on the internet.
It's really as simple as that. Again, they know the difference between right and wrong. I guess your ability to control them has not extended to the ability to get them to not see that. And look, I saw Nate Silver put out a tweet about how all these college students and these elite campuses are so removed, they're not representative of anything. He's the numbers guy, he's the polling guy, and when you look at the polls, yeah, no, they are largely reflective of the fact that the younger you are, and especially in the youngest demographic, you're the most likely to be critical of the US involvement in what's going on in Gaza. So you can see the percent saying that the way Israel is carrying out its response to October 7th is unacceptable. It's 46% of those aged 18 to 29. Acceptable is 21, far less than half the amount. Now the numbers are obviously very different as you move up to the older age categories, but this is actually largely reflective of what the youngest people think. And so, the idea that who is Joe Biden favoring? 36% of 18 to 29-year-olds saying he's favoring the Israelis too much. Far more than those who think that it's the striking the right balance or favoring the Palestinians. So they're doing what they can with the rights that they're supposed to have, but now largely do not, to send a signal to their government that they don't approve of this. This is supposed to be a democracy. They're supposed to be able to have their voice be heard, but unfortunately they're using it to say something that those in power don't want to hear, and thus the boot of the state is put on their neck almost instantaneously.
Yeah, so first of all, like I said, fun poll for you guys. You'll see the link in the description box, and you always get any links that we refer to, tyt.com/team to sign up for membership. Any of those links are always in the description box. But this is about who do you think has a better understanding of the student protests, Hillary Clinton or Michael Moore? And part of the reason that I'm asking this poll is I don't think that Hillary Clinton's gonna win this one, to be honest with you guys. You could surprise me, but it's because if you ask this on Morning Joe, they would find it to be a laughable poll. They'd be like, of course Hillary Clinton is right. This buffoon Michael Moore supporting Hamas and blah, 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 whatever propaganda that they're doing, right? Remind me who was right about 2016, Michael Moore or Hillary Clinton? Michael Moore warned that Hillary Clinton was going to lose, and he said, I'm not doing it because I want her to lose. I'm doing it so she turns around and doesn't lose. And she said, I know everything. You people have to vote for me. I'm entitled to your vote. And if you don't, you're stupid and uneducated. How'd that turn out, Hillary? I mean, like YTP Renewed is a member, wrote in on Super Chat. Why does anyone listen to anyone who lost to Trump? That's a great question. Trump is a grade A moron and a monster, and you're so bad at politics and policy that you lost to him? And now you're gonna give us advice on what we should do in politics? Yeah, I don't think so. Last thing for me is, guys, on October 7th, 860, a little bit over 860 civilians died in Israel. Also, a bunch of IDF soldiers died too. And all of it is a tragedy, but especially the civilians, of course. That's out of bounds, it's terrorism, it's terrible, it's wrong, right? 860. So our hearts broke for them. We told you right afterwards, terrible, awful. Now on the other side, we've got at a minimum 34,500 dead, 10,000 buried in the rubble. The numbers on both sides on those two things are probably much larger. We've got 77,000 injured. We can go on and on, but there's no dispute that at least the bare minimum 24,000 women and children have been killed in Gaza. 860, and that includes males, it includes everybody on the Israeli side, versus 24,000. The only way you would say that 24,000 dead innocent women and children on that one side is not enough, Israel should keep going and kill more Palestinians, is if you've been fed a nonstop diet of propaganda. Because any decent person would say about both of those things, don't, oh, that 860 is terrible, don't do that. And the 24,000, the 34,000, the 44,000, don't, that's awful. And in fact, literally 30, 40 times worse. But if you heard propaganda that Israel is the most moral army in the world and all of those deaths were accidental and they didn't intend a single one of those deaths, golly gee, they just don't know how to shoot straight. But the dirty, savage Palestinians meant every death, but the Israelis meant none of the deaths. The only way you would believe something that absurd is if you were fed nothing but propaganda by establishment figures like Hillary Clinton and Joe Scarborough. That's the show that she was on. Sharon.
Yeah, I mean, remember what Chef Andreas told us. Remember there were 3 precision strikes, but hey, who's counting? It was all an accident. And the sad part is, the first part of your statement, Cenk, was about how much October 7th was a tragedy. The numbers, the hostages, the IDF soldiers. But it's like when you say that, nobody heard that part. And it's also that when you put up the numbers of those civilians, Palestinians, women, children dead, it's not that they are real people. It's like when slaves were counted in that compromise as 3/5. I don't even know if we're counting innocent women and children who are dead as that much of humans. And the world is infinitely less safe because of this. Because if you add up the casualties and you, I don't know, times 100, those are the people who weren't part of Hamas, who despite everything going on in their backyard, didn't join hate, who now have no reason, their families, their loved ones, not to hate more. And I'll say this about what Michael Moore said, the civil rights, all these strong legacy leaders, and we're losing them now, so many of them as they are aging out, if you will. Only John Lewis saw the value, really, in young people, in the movement, in Black Lives Matter, in all of that. It's as if you get to be a certain age and you forget how young people were thoughtful and organized and changed the world. This propaganda routine is shameful, and the way you break it down and money and everything else is criminal and devilish. I don't know where it's going to end if we don't have some kind of sensibility in the morning Joes, in the mainstream media, to just call out the truth.
Yeah, it's like the Bill Maherization of everyone in politics. Like you reach a certain age when now all these young people, they think they're better than me. They think they know more. They think they have values more in line with the modern era. Screw them. That's what it feels like, honestly.
Yeah, so the last thing I'll say on that, John, is that I think you're onto something there. And I think that, but I'll add an extra layer to it, which is that they're super mad that their propaganda isn't working anymore. They're like, what do you mean? Bill Maher said it on HBO. Joe Scarborough said it on MSNBC. Greg Gutfeld said it on Fox News. And almost everybody said it on CNN, although CNN actually has been better than the rest in this particular story. They're like, and you guys still don't believe us? We already did our job of brainwashing you, but you refuse to be brainwashed because you're on TikTok now. Let's ban TikTok. And that's actually kind of exactly what happened. And the other day, Mitt Romney and Anthony Blinken weirdly admitted it in public, saying that the main reason they were banning TikTok was because they thought there were too many videos against Israel.
Yep.
Remember, that's the United States Secretary of State and a United States Senator. They're not in the Knesset.
And also, before we close, I just want to, you gave credit to CNN in some aspects of the story. They also, just in the last day, broke the story of the whistleblowers at the detention center in Israel, and they unveiled some of the horrific conditions as well as torture that a lot of Palestinians are experiencing. So not everybody is equally bad in all ways. The media overall could certainly be better.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.